Additionally to the pretty successful Olo 2, Tanchjim also released a portable DAC, but do you really need this? Hey guys, it's me Iceberg, and today I'm checking out the Tanchjim Space 2, a portable DAC based on dual CS43131 chips for around $87 US, which is logical continuation of the Space family, featuring the same chips, the same output power, and even PCF with DZ support, just like in first version. And now you might be like, yo Iceberg, what the hell is this? What's actually new here? But guys, don't be too quick to write it off. I mean, this device has some surprises for you, which I'll cover in this review. But first, let's start with the box and the unboxing experience. Alright, the Space 2 comes in a small, flat box with a pic of the DAC in your color choice on the front. And on the back we can see the model specs in different languages. So inside the box we get the Space 2 DAC, neatly recessed in a foam molding to keep it safe during shipping. Next we get a short Type-C cable, which is less bulky than in Space 1 and basically identical like in Space Pro, so it feels more flexible and playable, with these transparent connectors that look pretty cool. We also get a USB-A adapter for connecting to a PC or console, and a manual that's quite useful for beginners. Well, in terms of design and ergonomics, the Space 2 is very similar to the Space 3rd Gen, retaining the same compact dimensions of 4.2 by 2.1 by 1.2 cm and weighing about 15 grams, which makes it one of the smallest portable DACs I ever used, except for the dongles and T-shaped DACs, which are not particularly convenient to use on the go. So taking a closer look at this DAC, it's made of aluminum alloy and currently available in 3 color options: gunmetal or dark grey, a blue gradient that looks more like a sky blue, and pure black that I have. And right now, I feel like this is the least practical colors of the 3, because every tiny scratch will be clearly visible here, so don't make the same mistakes I did, guys. Anyway, ergonomically this DAC remains just as comfy and very lightweight with its rounded shape and design that's quite recognizable from the first model. So on the front we can see the embossed Tanchjim logo and small window through which we can see the internal layout, and on the bottom there is a volume control and a gain switch. On the back there is a Space 2 model, and on the side we can see a USB plug, while on the other there are 2 gold-plated outputs, a 3.5 single-ended output with a mic support, and a 4.4 balanced output with up to 235 mW output power and low power consumption from the source. Okay, until now, the Space 2 was practically a copy of the 3rd Gen, and yeah, that's exactly how it felt to me. But then I looked at the specs and key features of this model, and let me explain what's new in this one. You know, with the most DACs, manufacturers worry about how to cram in as many different chips as possible, put in a more powerful amp, and somehow fit in all on the board. However, the more I review DACs, the better I realize that having all these advantages is not as important as the proper placement of these components to ensure the audio signals take the right path to your ears. It's like, you know, just imagine you have 2 paths of the same distances, where one is the straight and easy to walk, and the others goes through labyrinths, bumps and other obstacles along the way. Which path would be easier for you? And the same things work for audio signal processing. You can either use a very cluttered board where the signal goes through a bunch of unnecessary resistors, capacitors and controllers, or get a simpler board with only the necessary components that cleanly transmits audio signal, and finally, Tanchjim went with the second way here. So the Space 2 runs on its own PureBridge USB digital interface chip, which is the first component in the audio processing chain, and its main functions is to control and pre-process the audio signal before it reaches the DAC chip. And this results in lower latency and reduced noise with distortion, essentially delivering a more stable and pre-processed signal directly to the DAC, which has been carefully tested in the Tanchjim lab. Also, the Space 2 is now compatible with the Tanchjim App, thanks to the implementation of the DSP chip, exactly the same as in Ola with the USB-C cable, which turned this device into a truly smart DAC, and let me tell you about it in detail. So the Tanchjim app is available on Android and Windows OS, and when we open it, we immediately get to the main control menu, where we can choose the high gain with up to 235 mW, or low gain, which apparently limited to the 50 mW and has very low power consumption, making it better for all-day use. Next there are the digital filters, which make a little difference in real listening, so you can leave the defaults. Then there is the DAC output mode, and leave AB class here for stable performance. The next thing is the mic gain, available only on the 3.5 output, and the official presets, which can make the sound more refined, so check it out for yourselves. On the next step we have a 10-band parametric EQ, and I absolutely love how we implement it in Tanchjim. I mean, it's both a very easy to use and intuitive feature for the average user, and a pretty serious tool for professionals, allowing you to fine-tune the frequency range to your liking. Personally, I like to use the ambient mode here, which gives a great sense of the surroundings, and the pop mode, which is pretty versatile and works well beyond this genre. The next two tabs are designed specifically for gamers, allowing you to choose one of the several EQ presets for a specific game, and in addition, allowing you to adjust the certain sound settings individually for more immersive gaming experience. And finally, you can enable 5.1 or 7.1 surround sound, but first, make sure your headphones support it, because otherwise, the sound will be somewhat unnatural. With the other important features, the Space 2 also supports PCM audio codecs up to 32-bit and DSD-256, along with the UAC 2.0, making this DAC highly compatible with all devices you want to connect it to. So moving on to my user experience, I use the Space 2 mostly with my PC, but also sometimes with the iPhone 60 Pro via the 4.4 balanced output and high gain. And I wanted to say that, first of all, it was quite convenient, and the device only got a slight warm after hours of use, but never too hot. So Tanchjim really did a great job here with energy efficiency and heat dissipation. Anyway, I tested the Space 2 with different IEMs, the brand new Ear & Resonance 5, which I'll be reviewing in the next one, and of course the Ola 2, which, you know, shows the absolute synergy here on the level with iPhone and AirPods. Then I use the complex hybrids configuration like the Dongle 142 and Kivir's Halcyon, and some simpler single DD models like the BQ YZNI and Kivir's Chorus, and here's what I can say. So the sound-wise, this DAC definitely doesn't sound like the most DACs based on the chips. I mean, it's not the neutral as the others, it has, I would say, a more extended V-shape tuning, where the Space 2 takes the frequency graph and stretch it out. And the biggest difference is felt on the edges of the graph, so the sub-bass becomes more defined with clear attack and decay, and in the treble region, the body of the vocals, cymbals, bells and other instruments get a more, clarity and purity, removing that artificial muddiness that sometimes appears in the armature or PCT drivers, for example. And of course, it's more analytical and transparent than other DACs, bringing micro and macro nuances to the surface, so it sounds wonderful on the well-recorded tracks, while also revealing certain flaws on poor recordings. And this improves the perceptions of the soundstage, where all elements are clearly defined and never turns into the muddy mess, even in the fast moments. And also, another thing I noticed is this boost in the upper mids, somewhere around 3 to 4 kHz, giving vocals more clarity and articulation, and instruments more presence, and more outlined images. And this works very well either with the Harman-tuned IEMs or, for example, the SIMGOT ET142 and Queen of Audio Cloudscape, while this boost is clearly noticeable. So I can safely say that the best synergy here is achieved either with the Harman-tuned IEMs or meta-tuned ones, and the best examples here are SIMGOT EM6L and the ZGOT Odyssey 2. Next, highly analytical models like the SIMGOT SuperMix 4 and ZGOT Luna. And of course, this works great with the planar IEMs, as well as the Tanchjim models like the Ola 2, Nora, Vola or Soda. It doesn't really matter which one you choose. But less effective synergy here is achieved with the warm IEMs like the ZGOT Crescent, for example, or something bright like the SIMGOT EW200 or the ZGOT Horizon. Hold on, why am I mentioning SIMGOT and ZGOT so many times? Anyway. So comparing this DAC with the EPZ Tp35 Pro, based on dual CS43 198 chips for $70, this is the DAC with the same form factor, featuring a window on the front, well play-up support, and slightly higher power output power, 262 against 235 on the 4.4 balanced, but without DSP and USB 2.0 support, which is understandable given the lower price. And in terms of sound reproduction, these are completely different models, each designed for specific scenarios. In comparison, the Tp35 Pro offers more detail and fullness in the treble, so it pairs well with the treble head IEMs, while maintaining a pretty neutral the rest of the range, while the Space 2 goes more inside, focusing on the micro details and sense of space, dynamics, and other technical details, making this model more versatile across different IEMs than the Tp35 Pro. However, given its higher power, the Tp35 Pro is potentially better suited for some full-size planar or dynamic headphones, making it less dependent on the single group of IEMs. And comparing this to the Cayin RU3 with the ESS Saber chip for around $100, it's definitely a step up in terms of user experience, because it has a small screen and twice the power, 560 against 235 on the balanced output, which is more than enough not only for IEMs, but also for most full-size headphones. But because of that, the RU3 is slightly larger and heavier, making it less convenient for use on the go. And in terms of sound reproduction, the RU3 retains Cayin's signature delivery, with tube-like analog warmth and musicality, yet with good technical precision and spatial imaging. However, what I noticed while testing the RU3 is that it slightly cuts off the edges of the graph, so the sub-bass and upper treble lose a bit of their fullness, which the Space 2 doesn't do, and that's the main difference here. The Space 2 tries to extend the edges of the graph to the maximum, so the sub-bass extends very deep and the upper treble soars in the harmonics and overtones with practically endless airy ceiling. And here, if you ever heard a tube amp or something like that, then you'll definitely love the RU3. But in all other cases when I listen to IEMs, I would go with the Space 2, since it doesn't color the sounds too much, which is better suited for long listening sessions. Alright guys, in conclusion, if you take a look at the DAC's appearance, it will be hard to find any differences from the Space first gen, aside from the colors, and that's exactly the thing. I mean, why do I have to worry about the design when it works well enough? Maybe it's better to focus on improving the user experience and the components inside, and that's exactly what Tanchjim did. The situation here is similar to the Ola 2, where they took a familiar shells, added balanced armature inside, included a Type-C cable with a DSP chip, and now, in 2026, it became a highly competitive device, because not every $60 IEMs has a mic, different presets, and a parametric EQ. And the same situations happened here. Tanchjim retained the compact form, completely redesigned the board, simplified the signal path, and added Tanchjim App support, where we can do literally anything with this DAC. And most importantly, the price dropped to the $87 compared to the $90 when Space 3rd Gen was released. But here we basically get all the same technologies as the Space Pro, but just in a smaller case. And that's pretty cool. So all in all, I would give this a 9 out of 10, taking off a point only for the lack of the display and the not so powerful outputs. So this deck is primarily intended for IEMs, and you need to realize that. However, given its compact size, lower power consumption and the Tanchjim App support, we can consider the Space 2 to be a modern and versatile device for all-day use, with customization options and sound delivery that makes your EM sounds more spacious, more detailed, and more technically precise. Thanks again to the Tanchjim and to you guys for watching, and if you found this review helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. This was Iceberg, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.